Ceasefire returns to Gaza, but will peace be established? Swagadam, welcome, Vanakkam. It is with extreme satisfaction and a deep sense of relief that I shared with you the news of the terms of ceasefire between the Hamas and Israel being reached in Qatar. Ceasefire will take effect from Sunday, though I do not know why it should not have taken effect immediately. Be that as it may, it's a matter of great relief, particularly for the people of Gaza and the West Bank, that they can look forward to living in relative peace, if I may use the word peace, after Sunday. The main question I want to raise with all of you is, will ceasefire amount to the establishment of peace? It's obvious that the parties concerned have now agreed, for whatever reasons, to this ceasefire arrangement. But I really do not have any valid grounds to assume that the willingness to accept a ceasefire also indicates a desire to establish peace, and it's quite naive to equate one with the other. Let me straight away state my reason for saying this. Ceasefire is a function of either of the parties or both parties wanting relief from the present state of misery. And in negotiating ceasefire, both parties calculate their advantages and disadvantages separately in terms of what is good for oneself without really having due regard for the interest of the other. Quite obviously, this is not the logic of peace. What I would urge all my friends to recognize, if you have not recognized it already, and I have no basis for assuming that you have not, but in case there is anyone among us who has not thought about this, I would very humbly submit that often the wise people of the world forget the most fundamental fact about peace. Let me state it very clearly, emphatically, because we need clarity on this. Peace is not a function of the weariness induced by prolonged war and the destruction and the loss of life caused by it. Peace is a function of the whole. This is the most important insight I wish to share with everyone. Peace is a function of the whole. Ceasefire is a function, unlike peace, of both parties calculating entirely in relation to oneself, of the calculating the advantages, the profit, the gain, the relief that a cessation of hostilities might achieve. Whereas peace results when both parties come together and create a shared view regarding the present and the future. Without the bottom line commonality of interest, without an actual change in the outlook, without shifting from the foundations of mutually exclusive conflicts, without abjuring, abandoning the idea that one can thrive at the expense of the other, peace cannot be established. It is not even enough that the two contending warring factions give up for the time being their separate and conflictual interests. That's only the negative part. The positive part is that both realize that the shaping assumptions on which they manufactured this totally senseless, absurd, futile, self destructive conflict. Not just one conflict, but a series of conflicts from 1948 onwards. That's a reality that we have to keep in mind all the time when we talk about peace in this region. Unless and until a completely different vision is evolved for the people of this region, and both realize that they need peace, they're entitled to peace, and they're entitled to peace because they have a duty to live together as brothers and sisters, live together as good neighbors. Because after all, they have a shared history, they have a shared ancestry, and above all, they belong together in the species called humanity. One of the main reasons why conflicts arise is that we lose sense of our belonging together in the wider family, and to the extent that we do so, we begin to think of ourselves only in terms of our separate identities, which then generates the conflict generating outlook, which makes or which sort of forces one into the delusion that my interests can be pursued, secured, and enlarged at the expense of the interests of my neighbor. It is because of this that in history, all conflicts, all wars, all bloodsheds have been undertaken between neighbors. One of the lessons that history teaches is that two neighboring countries can never live in peace. And therefore, the fundamental requirement for establishing enduring peace is the creation of a worldview, an outlook, wherein neighbors recognize that they need each other rather than they need to eliminate each other. The satanic, the perverse outlook that's dominating this region is that both parties believe that their interests can be secured and can only be secured if the other party is eliminated. My worry is that this ceasefire has been negotiated and hopefully achieved without addressing this basic reality. First of all, let me say that I'm immensely relieved. As a matter of fact, I woke up at 3 a.m. this morning with the word peace actually ringing in my mind, believe it or not. So I went straight away, I switched on the television set, and I saw this glad news. But it fired a series of thoughts and concerns in me, and that's what I'm sharing with you. We have seen a series of ceasefires in this region, as I said, from 1948 onwards. And I don't think that this is the last in the series. I hope it is the last. And I believe it can be the last, provided there is a willingness to address the very fundamental issue. The fundamental issue is that both Israel and the people in Gaza and occupied West Bank, people in Palestine, they think of their interests as mutually exclusive, and furthermore, they think that the only way to secure, stabilize, and enlarge their interests is by destroying the other. Both parties affirm and ardently believe that the other party has no right to exist. Please tell me, for God's sake, how such an attitude, unless it is addressed and corrected, can leave even the slightest margin for peace. So, obviously, the present negotiations that led to the acceptance of the terms of the ceasefire have not addressed this most fundamental reality. And I can't believe with what little historical realism I have, that lasting peace, temporary cessation of hostilities is certainly possible and very likely it is achieved. Though I would say that even today it is a bit too early to be cocksure about it. But let's ardently hope and let's eagerly look forward to Sunday when the terms of the ceasefire will take effect. But I again insist that peace is a function of the whole, the totality of the context, and that totality includes the Arabs, the Palestinians, and the Jews. So, if I may put the formula of peace, it is Israelis and the Palestinians, and is a conjunction. Here, I would lay the utmost emphasis on the conjunction and the Jews and Palestinians. I would say the Jews and Palestinians because the word and is so important for me. I hold them together grammatically using the word and. But the misery, the satanic element in this region is, as far as the outlook of both the parties are concerned, that is, the Jews and the Arabs are concerned, it is the Jews versus the Palestinians, or the Jews or the Palestinians. Both cannot coexist. One must cancel the other in order to survive. Now, this harsh reality is not addressed. And I'm afraid the politicians, while they have done their very best, and I salute them. In fact, I salute the officers of the Qatari Foreign Ministry, including the Prime Minister, for their amazing patience and perseverance in pursuing this almost intractable agenda of bringing this misery to a close. And the way they have gone about it is simply incredible, absolutely incredible. Hats off to them. I wonder why it is that Qatar takes such a dominant role in negotiating peace and why nobody else has that kind of commitment or credibility in this region, in this respect. That's another issue. Let's not divert our attention in that direction. So I think this task, namely laying the foundation for an enduring peace, cannot be a political agenda. It can only be a spiritual agenda. But that is again the real problem in this region, as I said in the previous video, that to me, the issue that torments the people, or the peoples, if you like, in this region, the Jews and the Palestinians, is not a political issue, it's a religious issue. It is religion that makes them sworn and mortal enemies to each other. It is religion that makes them feel that they can never coexist, and it's the duty of one to eliminate the other. Now, that is divisive religiosity. So, in place of this divisive religiosity, which is out and out satanic, what we need to create is a spiritual outlook. And what is the hallmark of spirituality? The hallmark of spirituality is the idea that humanity as a whole belongs together and that one cannot thrive at the expense of the other. This is what is called the holistic vision. Spirituality is essentially holistic, whereas religion is necessarily divisive and reductionist. It is religion that creates barriers between people, creates separate enclaves within which the adherents of various religious persuasions are imprisoned, indoctrinated, and poisoned in their outlook, making them feel and believe ardently that those who practice a different religion to the religion one practices have to be necessarily enemies to them. If you have a spiritual outlook, You will know that the bottom line of spirituality is the idea that the whole of the human family is one indivisible, integrated, unified whole with God as the center. Religion need not be God centric. In fact, no religion really is God centric. Whereas spirituality can only be God centric. And if you really believe in God, and if you believe, as both the Jews and Muslims believe, that there's only one God, and if there's only one God, and that God is the creator of everything, then by force of logic, you have to necessarily believe that the whole of the human family constitutes one single, unified, integrated whole, and therefore no part of the whole can be sacrificed for the sake of the other. Even if in a family there are 1,000 members, if something unfortunate happens to even one member, the whole family will be in suffering for it. The whole family will feel terrible about it. That's the idea of belonging together. And what is conspicuously absent from this region is the sense of belonging together between the Jews and the Palestinians. So, the real task, if peace is to be established on enduring foundations, is to create, foster, strengthen this idea of belonging together, this idea of the kinship of humanity. And in this context, let me make a reference to that very profound Jewish thinker, Martin Buber, who said the French Revolution gave humanity three stirring words, three profound words: liberty, equality, fraternity. Liberty traveled westwards, he says, and made America its home, and soon degenerated into debauchery. Equality traveled eastwards, had made Eastern Europe its home, and created the faceless collectivity which crushed out the individual. But there were no takers for fraternity. Whereas fraternity is the spiritual element. Fraternity is the idea that we all belong together despite superficial differences, and that one cannot thrive at the expense of the other. It is this element that is not acceptable to anyone. And I 100% agree with the insight of Martin Buber, Buber. His famous work is I hyphen thou, I thou. That's the title of his classic work. You can download it from the net and read. A very stimulating author. So, let me put my stand on the current scenario as clearly as I can. First of all, I hail the ceasefire agreement which will take effect on Sunday. I rejoice with the people, particularly in Gaza, that their misery is about to end. At the same time, I am concerned and I am worried that the present exercise, commendable as it is, glorious as it is, has not addressed, perhaps it is not the time yet to address it, but it has not addressed the most important question of creating the foundation for establishing an enduring peace. And my conviction here is that peace is a function of the whole, whereas negotiation for ceasefire negotiation looks at the situation in terms of two warring factions. Peace must look at the situation in terms of the two being being organic parts of the whole, which becomes real only when they become one. Now they are split apart. And so long as they remain split apart in their mind, peace cannot be a reality. To give you an example, what was the response of the chief of Hamas in Gaza to this announcement of ceasefire? He has been hiding for days and days. Now he has emerged and he has said that this means that Hamas has emerged victorious. Now, that's precisely the problem. That one statement actually went like a sword through my heart because it makes it very clear that the mindset to accept peace is not there. Ceasefire will be accepted because of helplessness. And I can tell you that what has paved the way for the present seemingly successful negotiation of ceasefire is not the cleverness of the Qatari negotiators or their perseverance. It's not the kind of a commitment to peace on the part of Americans or the Egyptians. It is fundamentally the collapse of the Syrian regime, the Assad al Bashir regime, which dealt a body blow to the Iranian control of this region. And Iran has been the main source, the main catalytic agent for perpetuating conflicts in this region. And but for the collapse of the Iranian influence in this region, the present successful negotiation of a cessation of hostilities would not have fructified. That's a fact of the matter. That's the truth about the geopolitical logic of this region. So that's how fragile it is. So as and when this situation changes, as and when Iran reestablishes its control and its tentacles in this region, which will happen, it's a matter of time, I would expect the resumption of hostilities. I would expect the bloodshed to continue. I pray to God that it may not. But historical realism tells me that people in this region are not willing to accept peace. And the main reason why they are not willing to accept peace is the demonic religiosity to which they are slaves, absolute slaves. They would rather die fighting because of their religions than live in peace because they are brothers and sisters belonging together in the wider family of humanity. And this is a hard issue. And if this issue is not addressed, I'm afraid there may be a temporary lull in this near Holocaust situation, but there will be no lasting peace. And that peace needs to be established for the sake of the long suffering people of this region. And I can tell you that if the Jews have any sense at all, and I believe they have a great deal of sense, they will realize that they have not achieved anything through this great adventure. Rather, they have ruined their future. I repeat today what I said in October 2003, that because of the aggressive reaction of Israel, which is compelled by what Hamas has done. I cannot whitewash what the Hamas did on the 7th of October 2023. But because of this overkill, Jews will not live in peace anywhere in the world for the foreseeable future. So the Jews should not congratulate themselves assuming that they have achieved a tremendous victory. There is no victory or defeat in this kind of thing. There is only collective madness. And what we have seen being enacted in this region is collective madness. So my question is, will the people of this region, because they have suffered so much and for so long, shift the foundation of their thinking, their acting, their perceiving from collective madness to collective peace based on the realization of the obvious fact that despite superficial differences, they belong together as members of the same family. Thank you. All the very best.